Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a decidedly surprise. I don't want to say ambush. Ambush seems like an incorrect word to use given the subject matter. A surprise stream. I'm hopefully going to be able to show you the Secret Service press conference that's upcoming in the next 15 minutes or so, I think it is. I started a little early, a little antsy. Just want to get a little pregame. Also, on the off chance that for some reason showing the Secret Service's own feed somehow gets me in trouble with YouTube, I figured I'd try to, leave it off the screen as long as possible until I can make sure I've actually got it. But so apparently announced just like half an hour ago. There wasn't any lead up to this. There wasn't any preamble. Just all of a sudden, oh, by the way, the Secret Service is about to have a press conference regarding the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Just 3 some odd weeks or whatever after it happened. Whereas they hadn't had one yet, really, and now we're going to get one after they've gone through one director of the Secret Service, have an acting director of the Secret Service who did a questionable job of his own in his own testimony, although I'll admit he did a much better job than his predecessor in both actually going to the crime scene, examining the territory, but still seemingly trying to throw the local cops under the bus or something and not really giving any explanation as to who screwed up and what's going to be done about it. Maybe this will be that. Maybe finally this will be that. Accountability will be leveled at whoever dropped the proverbial ball that day. I don't know. But I'm just waiting to get an actual feed, like an opening feed or something from the Secret Service's own site in order to bring it to you. Once I see that happening, I will translate it over. But in the meantime, so up to this point, the Secret Service really hasn't said a whole lot press conference-wise. Shortly after the attempt, there was a press conference with the local police and I believe some elements of the FBI, but the Secret Service pointedly did not show up to that press conference themselves. They've been very hush about the inner workings and goings on and so on. And pointedly, in most cases, avoiding having to answer the question of why wasn't the roof secured? They've dodged that in a couple, at least in the hearings that I've seen so far. They kind of get around having to address that directly by talking about the shooter. And ultimately, the shooter and the details thereof and motivations and all that kind of stuff is effectively irrelevant to the question as to why basic procedure and protocol was not adhered to and elevated positions within range of your standard firearm were not secured that day. How did that happen? Now, the acting director is technically not the guy who was at the wheel the day of the event. The lady who was, Miss Cheadle, thankfully is now out of her job. She should have resigned the day of. But in her brief tenure in the public eye in hearings, she said nothing, did nothing, and took accountability for nothing. So it's a big mess. And if Donald Trump actually becomes president again, you can bet your bippy the Secret Service is going to be reformed top to bottom. But anyway, who's joining me on this surprise stream, which I hope to actually have something to provide here soon. The Secret Service site is still in pause mode. Best Remy, good morning. Tier Alexander, good morning. Jaeger Pony, good morning. JMK, good morning. Miranda Stone, queen of the Discords, if you can believe it. Kiro Soldier, good morning to you. Matt Barnes, good morning. Josh Hammond, good morning. Kay Scholl, good morning. Shady Grin, good morning. Matthew James, good morning. The One Ton Hammer, good morning. Daryl Odell, good morning. Noah Sencio, good morning. Sabian 187, good morning. A2P, good morning. John Trioxin, good morning to you. And Mike Savage, Blarg. Yes, so I'm awaiting the Secret Service to begin the feed of their press conference, so I can bring that to you. My only worry is like when I've streamed direct broadcast from the White House, it felt fairly safe. The White House doesn't seem like it's a public institution. I wasn't streaming a news site's own feed or anything. So if it's coming from a governmental agency, I'm assuming, fingers crossed, knock wood, that I'm not going to get in some kind of copyright trouble if I stream their press conference live from their own site. That's my hope. I guess we'll find out. If this is a learning curve for me, well, then we'll all learn together, won't we? Also, Michael Sander, good morning. So in the meantime, I'm just filling up space. But the Secret Service has a lot to answer for here. The entire event has been so effectively downplayed in the media, and so many attempts have been made to dilute the significance of it, both the event itself and the injury Trump suffered, almost completely ignoring that someone died and 2 other people were nearly killed, and Trump was nearly killed by still questions like, was he really hit by a bullet? You know, was it shrapnel? Was it glass from a teleprompter? I mean, was it really that big of a deal? You've seen these headlines off and on for the last couple of weeks. Just like, are you just, what is wrong with you people? It happens to the guy you don't like. So now it's really not that big of a deal. And it's actually more of a bummer it didn't work. Like, oh my gosh. Hero Soldier, thank you so much. After the morning I've had today, I'm sitting with a book from last night and have to debate with leftist shills on Facebook. I'm exhausted. Well, you don't have to debate with anybody. You can put down the Facebook. You can just take a break, not engage. It is possible. And honestly, it's probably better for you if you don't. Some things can't be changed. It's just, and especially some minds. And why bother? Yeah, I don't know. Luke Skywalker 2, good morning. Corey Suzuki, good morning. But yeah, so it's been such a bizarre thing to watch the press coverage of this, or just like how it's already sort of fading out of attention and existence. Like, this happened in modern America with modern technology, with as much discernment on this particular presidential campaign, and a security lapse like this. If this had happened, if such a security lapse had happened for Joe Biden, you would never hear the end of it, and rightfully so. You know, it's just a fact of the matter, as it were, that in this day and age, and especially in the polarization that both verbal and ideological that's been taking place really strong since 2016 and onward, the fact that at this late date, the Secret Service would drop the ball this hard, I can understand some people crying conspiracy theory or something, but I'm usually first to assume incompetence than I am to assume insidiousness. And so what I'm hoping here is that they're actually having an engagement with the press, and they've got something to say, and they drop this on a Friday, right in the middle of everything in the news cycle at the end of the week and all this. Maybe there's something significant about to drop that they're hoping will be diluted by the weekend by the time we get to Monday. Or it'll be more dodging, prevarication, and blame gaming. I'm assuming the latter, just because that's been their pattern so far. But it's entirely possible they could actually fess up to something, or announce that, someone has been fired, that the on-site agent that day who was in charge of checking all the boxes, yeah, they're gone. But I had this thought, and I know it's a weird analogy, but you may have heard that Robert Downey Jr. is apparently playing some version of Doctor Doom in an upcoming Avengers movie. An Avengers movie that, by all rights, still doesn't have a script. An Avengers movie that, by all rights, didn't really exist up until about maybe a week or two ago, because they were still searching for a director for the Kang Dynasty as of like a month or two ago. But anyway, so yeah, they bring in Robert Downey Jr. and everything, and they bring back the Russo brothers to direct. Like, oh my gosh, the same team that brought you Infinity War is coming back. I mean, never mind that, Endgame kind of sucked, and that the Russo brothers, every project that they've been involved in since Endgame has pretty much tanked, like the Gray Man, like Citadel, and so on. But anyway, at the same time, it's like, okay, a brand new thing's coming, guys. We got brand new news. We got big news. And yet the same people who ran the show into the ground over at Marvel are still in charge. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if the Secret Service today come out and tell us they've made significant changes, or they've taken out the individual that they've decided is the person ultimately responsible, every other piece of the infrastructure that led up to that, I'll be kind right now and say, error, are still there, save for Cheadle, which was a good move, but a move made very late and with much reluctance. And I still don't understand what the delay was there. But whatever forces that were at work that prevented her or allowed her to keep her job, or I say prevented her from resigning and or allowed her to keep her job for as long as she did, they're still in place. So is anything really going to change? And do you trust these same team of people for all the sacrifice and dedication they may have otherwise to their job? The people in charge of it, do you trust them to run security for the Democratic National Convention or any other campaign event from here through November and onward? Even we're not even talking. I mean, these are the people who have like one specific task, save for looking for counterfeit money, and that is to protect the president and key political figures in times like these. So I'm hoping, in my hope of hopes, I'd say that there's going to be a top-down. They're going to announce today there's going to be some kind of top-down reassessment with an outside observer or monitor or some Secret Service expert from like 3 administrations back who's going to oversee reforms within the Secret Service. That's what I would hope. That's what I would hope. And it's got nothing to do with politics. It's got nothing to do with which side of the aisle. It's got everything to do with the fact that either we have a stable, and I know I'm putting that in quotation marks. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Let me get this. Hang it. 1 second here. Hold on. Okay. And let me get this up here. Apologies. We've got a minute or two here before they actually get up. Okay. Whew. I think we should be okay. All right. So we have the, let's see. Yeah. All right. So we have the stream up here. Let's hope that it works. You guys hear that okay? Let me know if you do hear that little background noise and hiss from the broadcast. Let me know. Anyway, I forget where I was going with it, but yeah, I'm hoping for a major announcement of reform and a major announcement of accountability, and not just a recitation of the things we already know and any more underbus throwing of local law enforcement. Or I mean, they could conceivably get away with blaming Cheadle. If they traced it all the way back to, former director Cheadle didn't do this or didn't do that, or her protocols were not in line with this, that, or the other. You could get away with that as a scapegoat, I guess. But ultimately, there's got to be somebody who was on the ground on the day that has to be held accountable. And there has to be an announcement of specific and significant reforms. And I can't wait to hear what the press has to say, because it seems like this is one of those issues where, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, I mean, hell, even AOC, when she was doing the hearing the other day, even AOC, and I understand that she probably didn't write her own talking points, but even she didn't hold back from tearing down the Secret Service director. So this is one of those things everybody can get on board with. It's like this concerns everybody's favorite candidate's security. So it's the waiting. That's the hardest part. Let's see. What do we have going on in the chat while we wait here? Been called. The fact that law enforcement came out and said the Secret Service did not talk to them is a number one big fuck off problem. Yeah, there was some in that very first press conference on the day where you had local law enforcement, and I believe it was elements of the FBI speaking. There was a distinct you would have to ask the Secret Service that, because local law enforcement, I mean, all credit to them, but ultimately they defer back up to the Secret Service in events like this. They're the guys in charge. They're the guys with the mission statement specifically geared towards protection of the president and political candidates. Oh, here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello. Is that too loud? I can turn it down a bit.
The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump was a dark day for our country.
Yeah.
I again extend my deepest sympathies to the family of Corey Pecoraro and sincere wishes for a swift recovery for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch. The Secret Service takes full responsibility for the tragic events of July 13th. This was a mission failure. The sole responsibility of our agency is to make sure our protectees are never put in danger.
Yes.
We fell short of that in Butler. And I'm working to make sure that this failure does not happen again.
Okay, how?
I'm focused on ensuring that the full resources of the Secret Service are utilized to safeguard our protectees.
All $3 billion?
Continue to implement changes to ensure that that happens.
Like what?
We are, and we will continue to cooperate with pending oversight investigations of the July 13th failure.
Okay.
Being done now by Congress, the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General, and the independent review directed by President Biden.
Great.
Additionally, the Secret Service's Office of Professional Responsibility is currently conducting a mission assurance review.
Which means what?
As I stated, I'm not waiting for the completion of those reports, and I've directed the Secret Service to take immediate steps to ensure our protectees are indeed safe. And I will summarize those steps in a moment.
Okay, good.
I am committed to pursuing accountability for the Secret Service's failure in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Right.
But let me be clear. If policy violations by Secret Service personnel are identified by the agency's mission assurance review, those individuals will be held accountable.
Oh.
And they will be held accountable to our fair and thorough disciplinary process.
So you're not going to name them today?
First part of that process is an investigation to identify whether policy violations occurred.
You had 3 weeks.
Potential policy violations are referred to our Office of Integrity.
What?
And appropriate discipline is administered under our table of penalties.
What?
The facts will drive the outcomes of those investigations. And I promise accountability.
Sure.
And I will not rush to judgment nor ignore due process. Every single person within the Secret Service feels the weight of what happened.
Not yet, they don't.
We are in an unprecedented threat environment and a high operational tempo during this presidential campaign.
Apparently not.
The men and women of the Secret Service are working incredibly hard and doing their jobs under difficult circumstances. They need to focus on their work.
Sure.
And they need to know that I have their backs. And that is my commitment to them.
No. You don't have their... Okay, dude.
I want to thank our state and local partners. The Secret Service relies on local law enforcement for every protective event. Those valiant men and women work tirelessly protecting their communities. They know the people, places, and terrain that we operate in. We owe them our thanks, and simply put, we cannot do our jobs without them.
We need an independent prosecutor.
And I know how important this relationship is.
No, you don't have their backs.
I spent 4 years in local law enforcement before joining the Secret Service.
Great.
I know the long hours these men and women put in and the professionalism they bring to this partnership. And in that capacity, I was always proud to support the Secret Service's protective mission when called upon as a municipal police officer. In no way should any state or local agency supporting us in Butler on July 13th be held responsible for a Secret Service failure.
Really?
Typically, the Secret Service refrains from commenting on ongoing investigations, but we know these are extraordinary circumstances.
Right.
So please understand that the information provided today is based on what I know now to a degree of certainty. We will learn more as interviews are completed and further evidence is gathered and analyzed, and I will share more information as it becomes available. But I can say without a doubt that heroism was present that day.
Yes.
Secret Service agents rushed to the stage to shield the former president with their bodies
Yes.
within 3 seconds of bullets ringing out in an unflinching act of bravery.
And their fellow service
Secret
agents
Service
failed
counter sniper
them.
who neutralized the threat with a single shot undoubtedly saved countless lives. We're in a high operational tempo.
Are you?
And I need and I want our Secret Service workforce, the dedicated men and women of the Secret Service. I want to know and I want to make sure that they are uplifted so they can focus on carrying out the mission.
No. This
they
is
are
tough
worthy of
love,
trust and confidence,
dude.
and they deserve your support.
This is tough love time. You are
Let
the
me take a
wrong
moment,
person to investigate
Speak to the American people that are counting on us to do our job.
Independent prosecutor.
To protect their ability to cast a vote for the candidate of their choice.
Hey,
The Secret
P-Dog
Service's
Night.
Successes are largely unknown. You will only know of our failures, and those have been documented, and all of them are undeniably dark days in our nation's history. But let me tell you about the dedicated patriots of the Secret Service.
Okay.
These public servants are the
Yes.
quiet professionals working in the background, day in and day out.
Yes, we understand.
They are standing the watch, providing a blanket of protection to the people that work in the White House, to the thousands of people who attend political rallies and nominating conventions.
I apologize. I'm going to mute this for a second, both for the sake of YouTube and because I've heard this speech from the same guy at the hearing the other day. He is the wrong person to be in charge of investigating the failures. Even at the hearing the other day where he testified, he talked about how he personally knew the Secret Service sniper who took the guy down, and he attested to his character and his ability and everything else. And I'm like, I'm sure the guy's great, but this is not about being friends. You need to find out what went wrong, and you need to have some tough love, not to constantly be your cheerleader for the organization that failed. We need an independent prosecutor.
On July 8th, personnel assigned to the agency's Pittsburgh field office conducted planning meetings and a site walkthrough with law enforcement partners and campaign staff. On July 10th, Secret Service counter sniper and technical security personnel arrived in Pittsburgh and began advanced planning for their teams. July 12th, the build out of the campaign rally site began and continued through the early morning hours of July 13th.
Thank you, Matt Barnes, by the way.
In the morning of July 13th, a site briefing was conducted with Secret Service personnel and law enforcement partners supporting the event. Secret Service personnel took their posts, and a technical security sweep of the protective site commenced prior to the site's opening to event staff, vendors, and to the public.
Why was the roof not secured?
At 12:30 p.m., the Secret Service opened the protective site to event staff and vendors. And then at 1 o'clock, magnetometer screening of the estimated 15,000 people attending the campaign rally event, staff and vendors began.
Why was the roof
at
not
5:30
secured?
p.m., former President Trump arrived at the campaign rally via Secret Service motorcade. And at that time, he met with supporters in a secure backstage area within the protective site. At 5:45 p.m., a local Butler County Emergency Services Unit counter sniper team member texted the Secret Service counter sniper team leader about a suspicious person and sent 2 photos of the individual later identified as the assailant. At 5:53 p.m., the Secret Service counter sniper team leader texted the Secret Service counter sniper teams that local law enforcement was looking for a suspicious individual outside of the perimeter lurking around the AGR building.
Why wasn't the president held
At this
from getting
time,
on the
Secret
stage?
Service personnel were operating with the knowledge that local law enforcement was working on an issue of a suspicious individual.
And did nothing.
The concept of local law enforcement working on such issues is common at sites. And on July 13th, there were over 100 calls for support.
Thank you, Jay.
At 6
2023.
p.m., former President
generous
Trump
of
took
you.
the stage to begin remarks. And based on what I know right now, neither the Secret Service counter sniper teams nor members of the former president's security detail had any knowledge that there was a man on the roof of the AGR building with a firearm.
Oh, but the public
It's
did.
my understanding that personnel were not aware the assailant had a firearm until they heard gunshots.
Oh.
At 6:11 p.m., A member of the former President Trump's protective detail contacted their Pittsburgh field office counterpart to inquire about the radio update that there was an issue local law enforcement was looking into near the perimeter. At 6:11 p.m., the assailant's first volley of 3 shots was fired. And within 3 seconds, the former president's detail rushed the stage and covered former President Trump, shielding him with their own bodies.
And who failed them
4 through 8
in forcing
shots
them to
took
do
place
that?
over the next several seconds. 15 and a half seconds after the assailant's first shot, a Secret Service counter sniper fired a single round that neutralized the assailant.
Right.
That concludes a quick, brief summary of the timeline.
Now
with
tell us
that,
about the
I'll
accountability.
turn it over to our staff here to begin.
What?
Any questions?
What? Your staff? You're not taking the questions? Wait.
Thank you for doing this. You said earlier this week to Congress that you start again. You said earlier this week to Congress that you don't want to tip anything on the scale as far as disciplinary action is concerned. I need to ask you, since you testified, has anyone been suspended with or without pay? Has anyone been fired? And will you tell us as people are disciplined along the way, or is this something we're going to need to just constantly be asking? Or will you update and tell us 5 people have been fired?
Good
6
question.
people, 7 people.
All right.
What can you tell us?
Sure. Thank you for that question, David. So, as I said in my opening statement, there are going to be, there's the mission assurance review. If that mission assurance review is looking into if there were policy violations. At that point now,
you said you weren't going to
if
wait.
in fact there were policy violations,
There
at that
were.
point, now it'll go into a parallel path of a disciplinary type of investigation.
It's been 3 weeks.
Those are internal investigations that deal with employee matters. So we're not going to be able to provide real-time updates or continuously to provide you updates on that. But what I will tell you is that these are very thorough investigations. And if in fact there were policy violations and they are substantiated, those employees will be held accountable.
Thank you, Matt Barnes.
You may not be able to tell us names or positions or something, but will you be able to say that people have been disciplined? People want to hear that there's some accountability here.
I will be able to, at least at a high level, provide at least some type of statement that people are being accountable, being held accountable.
What does that mean? Are you kidding me?
On the roof, which we believe is the assailant that was running back and forth while President Trump was speaking. What do you make when you see of that? How does that go with this timeline?
Yeah, so it affirms to me, and again, and you heard this from the FBI, and they're still conducting interviews and looking at this. It even just affirms to me that this was a failure. We should have had better protection for the protectee. We should have had better coverage on that roof line.
Yeah,
we should have had at least some other set of eyes from the Secret Service point of view covering that. That building was very close to that outer perimeter, and we should have had more of a presence. And
why
so,
didn't
as far as
you?
The timeline of him running back and forth. I know the FBI has provided a bit of a chronology as well, and so I'd have to go back and look at that. But the bottom line is this, David: this was a Secret Service failure.
You
that
keep
roof
saying
line should
that
have been covered. We should have had better eyes on that.
Shoulda, didn't. Why?
Thanks, Director. We're going to go to the Washington Post. Carrie Stein. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I have just a quick follow-up. Can you describe? You said there were 100
Thank you, Matthew James.
calls for support. Who those calls came from and what those looked like, and also moving forward, do you anticipate, and if so, what any different changes in protocol between how Secret Service communicates or works with local law enforcement specifically as they work to secure events or other things?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So with regards to calls for support, it was a very hot day that day. There was a lot of not only EMS type of calls to address people, but there were people that needed some other type of law enforcement assistance. This happens a lot at outdoor rallies, where especially on hot days.
Then if it's common,
so
the more you're bringing it up.
There was a lot of traffic, radio traffic on the local net about, hey, I need EMT here. So there was a lot of people that were needing,
but suspicious
assistance.
person with a
respect
drone.
to the interoperability. So one of the things that I've directed is I've commissioned a task force And that task
Oh.
force is going to be leveraging the resources of the Department of Homeland Security.
Oh,
It'll be co-chaired in all likelihood by someone from the Secret Service and someone
Oh.
from CISA. And I think we're also going to bring in some state and local law enforcement. The interoperability challenge, it's not an easy fix. It's not as simple as just trying to figure out the local frequency of the agency you're working with and then
What?
piping that into your radio network. It requires a substantial technical fix. In the meantime, before we can get to that, what I need to have is I need to make sure that our folks, when they're out there, we use a counterpart system. On the day in Butler, we had a Pennsylvania state trooper in our security room. They also had a unified command post
Oh,
that had some of the
and
other
of what
agencies that were on
benefit was
site
that
day.
to the overall security of
It is
Trump?
plainly obvious to me that we didn't have access to certain information, not by
What?
anybody's fault. It
No,
just so
no!
happened that there was
Not
a
by
sense of
anybody's.
urgency, that there might have been radio traffic that we missed. We have to do a better job of that.
It's
So
nobody's
moving
fault.
forward, in addition to this task force,
You're gonna
that
hold people
we'll provide
accountable?
more information on next
But
week
it's
as we
nobody's fault.
begin to stand that up. I've also directed all of our SACs, our special agents in charge of field offices across the country, to reevaluate where we put our security rooms.
No.
If,
What
if a
happened
state or local
there
sets up a unified
that
command
day?
post, maybe we need to be in that room as well,
What?
as opposed to just being in
No.
another room and relying on that counterpart system. It was so apparent to me that in this incident, in the final 30 seconds, which has been the focus of what happened before the assailant opened fire, there was clearly radio transmissions that may have happened on that local radio net.
There were people pointing at
and
the
so
guy.
we have to do a better job of co-locating, leveraging that counterpart system.
Holy
And this is going to
cats.
drive our operations going forward. It did not make it over to us. So whether we did not hear it, it just did not make it over to us.
Why?
It did not make it to us. And
Why?
I go back to my opening statement where the members of the detail, they did not, all they knew that they're the issue, that the locals were working an issue.
Thank you, Matt Barnes,
at the
by the way.
president's 3 o'clock, which would have been off to his right, which is where the shot came from.
On that question of the 100,
Yeah, a task
sorry,
force made up
to
of the Secret
clarify
Service.
the 100 calls that you got roughly that day. I understand a lot of them were heat related. How many specifically were suspicious people? Was this the only
Mhm.
call, the eventual shooter that
Good.
was a
Good
suspicious
question.
character?
Just trying
And
to
then
hide
also just
behind the
can you
frequency.
clarify, did you guys have a drone on site? Did you try to use it? And if not, like, why did you not use the locals' offer of a drone?
Sure. So as I understand it now, based on the information I have, there were other calls of suspicious individuals.
How many?
And your other question was about drones.
No.
Drones, yeah.
How many?
Sure. Right. So we did not have a drone on site. We did not put a drone up. Based on the information I have right now, I am aware that there was a request from a local agency to offer to fly a drone on that day. And that is also part of the mission assurance
So
review that I've asked
the
to
shooter
get some better insight.
Had better coverage
One of
than
the
the
other
Secret
changes that I
Service
implemented when I
of the
when I
event
became the
site
acting
with his
director
drone.
is we are now going to
Okay.
leverage the use of unmanned aerial systems.
Oh,
at site.
now you will.
So,
okay.
we are putting those assets out,
Uh-huh.
and we should have had better line of sight on some of those
Shoulda,
high ground concerns.
Coulda, woulda.
We thought we might have had it covered with the human eye,
What?
but clearly we are going to change our approach now, and we are going to
Oh my
leverage
God.
technology and put those unmanned aerial systems up.
Thank you so much for doing this. You mentioned that there were text messages from Butler ESU to U.S. Secret Service counter snipers. I'm curious if that is routine. You know, there were 2 communication channels at the Butler rally, and you referenced earlier this week, it appears that information was stuck or siloed at the state and local channel. What was the plan to relay information from locals to the Secret Service initially? What is the protocol? And I just have one follow-up.
Sure. So, Nicole, we use that counterpart system, right? And so
An
the
established
teams,
system.
especially on the tactical side, when it comes to the tactical our counter assault team, they actually had an embed with them from the local TAC team, and they had that radio net as well with Pennsylvania State Police.
Uh-huh.
When with respect to the counter snipers, they were using cellular or telephone text communications. At this point, moving forward, what I have directed now is that everybody should be using the radio net. And if we don't have the ability to pipe in or leverage that counterpart system, that's one of the things that we're looking at now. We should be able to have direct comms
Why was
with
that
people
not
that
being
are
done
supporting us.
before?
And that's moving forward. That's what I have directed.
So just to clarify, U.S. Secret Service counter snipers did not have radio communications.
Not with the local CS folks that were providing a support.
Why not?
They were basically had an area of responsibility independent from where
Oh, you
our
got
counter snipers were.
right hand
were
doesn't know what the
secured.
left hand is
The last
doing.
thing, did the U.S. Secret Service
Jesus.
counter sniper teams that arrived on site on July 10th ever relay line of sight concerns? What came of that? And can you confirm that this was the first 2024 campaign event that counter sniper teams were assigned to the former president?
Sure. As part of their advance, they identified those line of sight, those high ground concerns, and there's a division of labor. With respect to the whether or not this was the first time, it was the first time Secret Service counter snipers were deployed to support the former president's detail.
Why?
Hi, thanks so much for doing this. I have a question about the review that you did, the picture that you showed in the Senate the other day of the vantage point that the local snipers had. How do you know that that's the window that they were actually posted at? Because they're saying
Thank you,
that
John
they're
Miller.
on a completely other side of the building. And related to that, has the Secret Service actually interviewed the snipers that were in the AGR building?
So thank you for that. So once the FBI had released the Butler Farm Show site, we were able to take custody of it, and we sent the full resources of our Office of Investigations, which included the Forensic Services Division. We did a full site reconstruction, and this is part of our ongoing mission assurance review. And as part of that, that also included the plotting and also trying to identify where not only our personnel were, but also where state and local law enforcement were.
Okay.
And then the second part of your question was?
So, I mean, how did you identify where they were? And have you interviewed the local snipers?
So the mission assurance, we're starting with our federal personnel and working out. We will
You've had
if they're
3
willing to be
weeks.
interviewed, we will ask for the local law enforcement on
will?
site to be interviewed that day.
Jesus.
How we went back and reconstructed that was
Thank you,
based
Cryptic.
on what we had based on the ops plan, and then also based on what our own folks, as they understood it on the day of.
Well, but I mean, you talked a lot about how you may not have been as specific as you need to be. So how do you know that they were in that window, that if they looked left, they could have seen something? Because
Yeah.
they're saying there's no way they couldn't see any of the rooms from where they were posted on the other side.
So I think what we'll do is we'll let the mission assurance play that out, and we'll look forward to interviewing them
What?
and definitely getting their side of the story.
It's
But
been
what I also want to
3
reiterate is
weeks.
this was a Secret Service failure, and so
Okay.
they should not be blamed. We're not trying to shift blame to anybody.
You're not trying to shift blame, but you're not trying to take any accountability either. And you guys are the last people who should be investigating this. Your credibility is in the toilet.
Director, thank you for taking the time. Just a couple questions, if you could walk us through some things to help us better understand. Have you gotten to the bottom of why there was no one stationed on the roof from a law enforcement perspective, and
Thank you.
why there was no one there to secure the building to make sure no one could get up there? Have you gotten any clarity on why those two lapses in security were in place? And I have a couple quick follow-ups.
Sure, it's something that again, having been there the day after I was named the acting director, I wanted to put eyes on and go up there and see it. And looking at that site, it really seeing how close that site was to
That doesn't
the
answer the
stage,
question.
seeing where it was. It definitely raised a lot of questions in my mind that there should have been physical presence, if not on the roof, that there should have been better security to prevent anyone from
Why
getting up on that.
wasn't there?
So moving forward,
Thank you,
Uh,
Corey Suzuki.
I've directed our Office of Protective Operations and our special operations division
Moving
now
forward,
that when we are up operational and we have counter snipers out there, that we were working with locals and that they would.
why
they,
wasn't
in
there
fact, will also
someone
be
on the
out
roof?
present.
Why
At-
is that such an
at the
impossible
very
question
least,
to answer?
The presence of a law enforcement officer can deter a lot of bad activity.
You ain't kidding.
Having been a local police
And-
officer, I will never know how many crimes I prevented just by being there, just by walking the street and being out there. And so moving forward, one of the things that we want to do is we want to deter people from even thinking about trying to do something like this again.
What the hell
And the only
happened
way
that
we can
day
do that is
then?
leveraging not only the resources that we have, but the resources of our state and locals and putting them out there in an overt presence.
Answers
quick follow-up.
nothing.
You talked at length at the hearing.
Thank you,
the
Matt
other day
Barnes,
about
again.
the system
Yeah, I
that did
might.
not operate that could detect drones.
Mhm.
Can you describe a little bit of how that works? Does that go in the sky itself to detect the drones? And then finally, the interoperability issue. I'm clear in terms of that Secret Service radios were not communicating with the locals, but you had people in the command post, right, who in theory could hear and know some basics of what was going on. Is that am I understanding that correctly?
So with respect to the counter UAS, Pierre, I don't want to get into too much sensitive information, but what I can tell you is it allows that asset allows the geolocation to be able to plot where a drone is within a certain distance of how we set up. So think of it as like geofencing, and then being able to pinpoint.
Yeah, and your fence was like
and
what,
detect
5 feet in
where that is.
diameter?
And with respect to the agency that was, we had Pennsylvania State Police, but it appears that there was really a big sense of urgency going on, and the state and locals were doing everything they possibly could to try to find the assailant. He had already come to their attention. They were actively trying to find him.
Why weren't you?
I believe everyone was doing their level best to try to locate him.
But they didn't.
But there could have been other agencies that were putting out radio transmissions. And this is something that we'll work with the FBI to get further on. But those radio transmissions might have just been back to the unified command post and maybe not have made it over the Pennsylvania State Police here.
So
that's something that we're going
the
to look
locals'
into,
fault?
and
What the
definitely
hell?
something that we are moving
What the fuck is
forward.
this guy
We definitely
saying?
want to remedy this going forward.
Oh, it's totally our fault. But by the way, it was really the locals and the radio network.
That they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock of the stage.
What the?
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
I wanted
thanks.
to ask you about changes moving forward. Former President Trump has said he wants to continue having outdoor rallies. What specifically will be different at the next rally? That
I can't
wasn't
tell you
the
that.
case
That's
in
that's
Butler?
classified.
And if I could ask a follow-up to, do you have information in the 30 seconds after the gunman was confronted on the roof by a local law enforcement officer that there were local law enforcement trying to communicate with the Secret Service that there was someone on the roof with a gun and that transmission was the one that was missed?
Okay. So with respect to the former president wanting to get back out there, listen, it's a campaign season, right? Candidates want to be out there.
Yeah.
They want to be, whether it's an indoor site or an outdoor site, it's on the Secret Service to make sure that we create a secure environment.
Yes.
Listen, we identify challenges, we identify concerns, and then it's on us to figure out what we need to do to mitigate that.
So what?
If there are going to be future campaign rallies outside,
what are you doing
it's gonna be
differently?
on us to make sure that we are providing all of the assets and resources to make sure
That's your
that those sites are
job.
indeed secure. With respect to the radio transmissions,
Good God.
based on what the FBI, my colleague from the FBI testified the other day, and they are working on isolating some of those radio frequencies from the state and locals. That there was somebody who did in fact radio out that they had seen the individual with a weapon. What I can tell you is that piece of information, that vital piece of information, and by no fault of anyone, it was a very stressful situation. It did not make it over. Our detail, our counter snipers, everyone that was there that day, were
If there's no
under the
fault,
assumption and under the
what accountability do you
under
promise?
the last bit of information they had received, that there was an issue that the locals were working at the 3 o'clock. That's the bit of information that we
The
had.
locals
anything
were
about a
looking
weapon.
at the 3 o'clock.
I wanted you to address, or if you can, describe the Pittsburgh field office and their level of experience, especially in preparing for events like this. And also, have they explained their thinking and how they defined the perimeter that day?
Sure. Thanks, Holmes. You know, our Pittsburgh field office, I don't think there's anybody in the Secret Service who is feeling this more than the men and women of our Pittsburgh field office.
Well, they should.
And I've met with them.
Great.
And they are down right now.
Oh.
And so when I've met with them the other day, it was very difficult. It's difficult for them.
Yeah.
They feel like they let their colleagues down.
Oh, their colleagues.
They feel like they let the country down.
Yeah.
And they are wearing this, and it is.
Oh, you know who else is
open.
wearing this?
You can see it. It's an open wound.
The
that they are
Compatori
carrying.
family. You know who's wearing this?
They're a very experienced office.
Are they? Could have
And
fooled
what I will
me.
say is they are cooperating with the mission assurance. They understand the gravity of this situation.
I'm glad.
And they are definitely down
Definitely.
right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rain Man. You got something else for us? Oh, they're down. Oh, are they sad? The fuck? Really?
I'm curious how the Secret Service can even make assumptions regarding protection, because it seems antithetical to the entire protection mission.
Yeah. So when I said it's a failure to challenge our assumptions, meaning the assumption that, hey, that's going to be addressed or that's going to be covered by state and local. So earlier this week, I convened a call with all of our special agents in charge of all of our field offices. And I expressed to them, listen, we need our state and local counterparts, but we also have to be very direct, very clear about what our expectations are about what we need from them, whether it's a particular asset, whether it's particular numbers of personnel,
or
we
covering
need to be very
elevated
clear so that they have an
dispositions around an
understanding
event
of
site.
exactly what we need from them. That's on us. We need to be better
Yes.
communicators and articulate exactly what we need to mitigate any challenges, concerns, or anything that we identify during that advanced process. And so I have full confidence in our SACs in the field. I have full confidence in our state and local counterparts
Why?
that moving forward now, we're not going to have this assumption that, oh, we think that they have
Well,
it.
why?
We're gonna-
What
we're gonna work
reforms have you
together.
put in
We're gonna
place?
have
Who have you
good,
fired? How do you
hard,
have this
fierce
confidence?
conversations about what we're going to do, and then we're going to go out there and we're going to make all of these venues secure moving forward.
If all of your reports and investigations have yet to complete, how can you say you have full confidence in anything until you've done a ground up review?
Hoping you could elaborate a little bit on a portion of the timeline in which you address
Jesus.
a communication between the Secret Service detail and personnel at the Pittsburgh field office. It just struck me as a little vague, and I was curious if you could elaborate on
Yeah.
what that communication was.
So the former president's details, they had an advanced person on the ground who was responsible for the site.
Okay.
The radio transmission goes out about locals working an issue at the 3 o'clock.
The 3 o'clock.
That the member of that detail called their Pittsburgh field office counterpart.
Okay.
Hey, what do you know about this? In the midst, right in the middle of that phone conversation, the shots begin firing.
Even
So
though
that's-
he'd been
that's the
detected
context of it.
half an hour prior or more.
Sorry if I missed. Could you say how they became aware of the locals working an issue in the first place to even have that conversation with
That was
Yeah.
the radio transmission that was put out by our security room.
I got it. Okay. Just to follow up, I'm curious about, you mentioned that this was the first event where Secret Service counter snipers had been assigned as part of the security for former President Trump.
Matt Barnes, I
To what
completely
extent do you think
understand.
that factored
And
into what we're ultimately shown.
have
to
a
be
good rest of your
failures? Just that
day.
this
And
was
thank
the
you so much
first
for your
time,
donations. Appreciate it.
at least in a
And,
while in his
yeah.
capacity as a former president, that they
If,
were
if
there
I
on
wasn't
the site.
streaming this just for my own
So-
edification, I'd have
Novelty of it.
dropped out a long
Sure,
time ago. This
sure.
guy's absolutely
So let me
nuts.
Let me
Thank you,
just
Matt Barnes.
clarify one thing. This was the first time that Secret Service counter snipers, but the former president at campaign rallies has actually been getting state and local resources. So tactical
But
assets, counter
not
snipers from
snipers.
state and locals.
Secrets.
so
Okay. All right.
With respect to why they were there in Butler,
Yeah.
listen, we evaluate our threat landscape every day.
Do
We
you
calibrate based on that threat.
really?
We
Why was that roof left uncovered?
evaluated a threat stream that we have, and we put
What
our
was
Secret
that
Service
threat
counter
stream that
sniper
day?
personnel out there. And
What was
looking back,
special about that day?
you know, it was very fortunate that we did. But
Was it?
the former president will have counter sniper coverage moving forward, as
Oh.
will the president, the vice president, Senator Vance, and then
Uh-huh.
we'll await the eventual Democratic vice presidential nominee.
What
we are
was
going to put
special
full
about
resources
that
out there
day?
to make sure that, you know, our campaign cadence now is obviously picked up, and we're going to make sure that we have all the resources out there to address any challenges that we have.
Thank you. As you're doing this review, are you looking at the days leading up to this event and the instructions that you gave to state and local and federal partners? I know in the past there used to be a PowerPoint presentation that was given before events like this, where people who were part of each unit in the Secret Service would stand up.
Somebody needs to ask if it's appropriate. This guy specifically, is it appropriate for the Secret Service to be conducting the review of their own protocols and actions that day? Is that really appropriate? Is that going to be efficient? Should that be trusted?
And do you also think the Secret Service is too reliant on state, local, and federal partners? I mean, you have almost 2,000 HSI agents helping in events coming this fall. That's a third of their workforce, and it takes a lot from state and locals as well. So first, would you bring back the PowerPoint? Do you think there should have been more planning? And are you too reliant on state and local and other partners?
Thanks, Julia. So that will be part of the mission assurance, the communications and what was communicated.
Will be.
What I can tell you now, based on information I have, is there was, and what you're referring to is what we call a police meeting, where we bring all the agencies together that will be directly supporting a particular visit. We know that there was a police meeting. We know that there were agencies from the various jurisdictions were present. The ones, and when I say that, the ones that were the primary ones identified with providing support and were going to be involved in the advanced planning process, meaning they were going to provide a counterpart, kind of like what you said, the PowerPoint. If you're going to be conducting the site, this is Special Agent so-and-so, and you know, here's their contact info. And then usually at the end of that meeting, everyone kind of goes off and they form up and they go over, you know, how they're going to go out and do the walkthroughs and identify some of the things.
And so where was the failure point that day?
Based on the information, I don't know about the PowerPoint. I can tell you that there was a police meeting. With respect to the PowerPoint, I certainly think that visuals are always good. I think that if we're not using it, we certainly will. But that goes back to my direction that we have to be very specific about what we're communicating and what our expectations are moving forward. With respect to the reliance on state and local law enforcement, listen, there are 700,000 full-time law enforcement officers, over 700,000 full-time law enforcement officers in the United States. The majority of prosecutions in the criminal justice system in the United States are done by state and locals. That's a result of criminal investigations that they do every day in their communities to keep them safe. Over 135 officers died last year serving their communities, federal, state, and local. 47 of them died by violent means, gunfire.
And Corey Compatore died because the Secret Service failed.
They're out there every day securing their communities.
Are they?
They know the terrain. They know the people.
Do they?
Importantly, they know the local laws.
Oh.
If you're in a state where it's open carry, we're going to rely on them to enforce local laws.
Okay, so it's the locals' fault.
Cannot go out there and enforce the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Oh.
I need those state and local law enforcement
officers.
Okay. So I would push back on that. With respect to leveraging other federal partners, when we were in the Department of Treasury and I was a brand new agent, I would stand post during a campaign year with agents from ATF, IRS criminal investigations. You know,
name
we were all
drop or
one
what
big happy
now?
family. Customs. Customs moved over to DHS just like we did. So we do this every 4 years. We rely on those partners. We use them during national special security events like the Democratic National Convention, the United Nations General Assembly, the presidential inauguration. Those are whole of government security operations, which the Secret Service is the lead planning for. and we're going to
Oh.
bring in
So
partners from across the government.
Was Trump too
I
small
don't
time
feel
for you
that
or
it's an
something?
over-reliance. It's something that we have done going back to our days at Treasury, and we're going to continue to do that. We need those partners, and we need those state and local officers.
Oh my God. Okay, great.
Sure.
You need them.
Understand when you're talking about that time period where locals understand that this person is a threat, but it's before Secret Service finds out, understands communication issues. Were they not standing right next to them, or were they in two separate command centers?
So we had our security room, and then they had a unified command post, and we had Pennsylvania State Police officer representative in our
What?
security room.
But why would you be
No, there was
separated
not.
like that?
Are there typically two separate
Yeah.
centers?
That was unique. As I understand it, that's an
Why?
emergency management model that they use. You know, as I mentioned in that conversation with our special agents in charge in the field, I've directed them, hey, we need to rethink where we put our security room.
Oh,
If
really?
the
Yeah.
large
Yeah.
majority of our partners are in a unified command post or in a different location, we need to probably be there too. And so we have to rethink how we.
So wait, just at
you know,
this
where
event,
we
you
put our
had
security
two
room, and we
separate
are in fact
areas
doing
of
that now moving
command.
forward.
Why?
So let's go to Ellen Gilmer with Bloomberg, with the pool. After time to call.
Thanks so much. You know, appropriators in Congress this week delayed consideration of DHS's budget for fiscal 25. They want to know more about what Secret Service needs. I know you said Tuesday, obviously every agency head is always going to say they need more resources, but can you be kind of specific about what resource needs there may be, particularly when we're looking at the technology issues, radio transmissions,
Sure.
the CUAS system?
So following this, we have had tremendous support from the Department of Homeland Security and from the Secretary.
Oh yeah.
And we
$3
have in
billion
fact
worth.
looked at all of these needs, given
Thank you,
this
John Miller.
dynamic, high threat environment that we're operating in. In order to meet this, we can meet this now. But it is
You
going to
couldn't meet it
require
3 weeks
additional
ago?
investments and resources. And we are having those conversations.
Oh,
We
good.
certainly
Glad.
have been, we've had great support, not only from the department, but also our appropriations committees. And we are working through kind of what our needs are right now.
Oh, what
We
do you
will,
need?
have
What do you
future
need?
conversations about this, and we are appreciative that everyone is really coming together to make sure that we have what we need to meet this
Oh,
high threat.
yeah. High threat, 20-year-old. Yeah. Yeah. High threat.
Listen, that's not for me to weigh in on, but what I will tell you is,
Why not?
you know, there's also a lot of discussion about why should the Secret Service do criminal investigations. And what I will say is this: we were founded in 1865
Oh,
as an
geez.
investigative entity.
Uh-huh.
It's in our DNA.
Is
I
it?
firmly believe that the best protection agents learn those skills being criminal investigators. You learn how to interact with people. You learn organizational skills. You learn.
Do you
to be
learn to put somebody
analytical.
on a
Those
roof?
are all traits that you need to have when you're on a detail.
Oh, yeah. mhm.
Moreover, if you look at where we are today, buildings, communities, everything is interconnected.
What?
And so we have a particular expertise in cyber
Buildings
and in cybercrime and critical systems protection. And so when you
And how did that all work
overlay
out for you 3 weeks
that
ago?
investigative skill set that we have, you know, it's more than just securing the president or our protectees in a brick and
Which
mortar
you
setting. It's
can't.
also protecting them from things that make them vulnerable due to cyber. And
Oh,
so the only
yeah.
way to learn those skills, to be able to
Uh-huh.
detect, to be able to
Is to learn to
analyze,
code?
to be able to make sure that we are hardening not only cyber systems, but hardening
Yeah.
a building that is
Uh-huh.
fed by cyber systems. The only way
Oh.
to gain that experience,
How about a building's
that
rooftop?
knowledge, is to be able to do criminal investigations. Additionally,
Mhm.
it is within our investigative authority to follow up on threats. People make threats to the president and the people we protect every day. We
Yeah.
need to have that domestic and international network of field offices to be able to track down those threats. And if necessary, bring those people to justice
So
and
you
present them to a U.S. attorney's office.
Don't have those?
So this,
or you're
this-
just
you know,
justifying
I know
the
there's been a lot of
continued
talk.
funding.
Should we or shouldn't we? Should we do this? Should we be in DHS? The bottom line is this.
I'm not
If you
hearing
want the
that.
Secret Service to continue to be the Secret Service and be effective at what it does,
Which it
it
isn't.
needs to be doing investigations, and it probably needs to be in the Department of Homeland Security until Congress or others have an opportunity to weigh in.
Uh,
Just a quick question. There's a report that a whistleblower has alleged that you personally directed cuts to the counter surveillance division, which led to the threat assessments team failing to perform its duties that it typically would before the Butler rally. Is that accurate? Is that allegation accurate?
So I've recently I've become aware of this. We got a congressional letter on it. What I can tell you is that the counter surveillance division, they do a fantastic job. They have a very specific mission set.
That's
a lot of that mission set is here in
that's
the
not the question.
National Capital Region,
That's not the
focused on
question.
permanent protective sites.
That wasn't the
But they
question.
do go out and they support when requested. They go out and support former details.
Answer
I know
the
that
question.
there's been allegations that that I personally cut or
Yes.
that I that I denied requests.
Yeah.
The counter surveillance division has been out there supporting
No.
the former president's detail at some very
Did you or didn't
high-profile
you?
events. They continue to provide that support, and
Did
they're out there
you?
providing support right now.
Or didn't you?
So we're going to respond to the letter that we received, and we'll be sure to make that. I'm sure they will. We'll be able to share that response when the committee says it's okay to respond. I did not. No.
You didn't.
Did you finally figure out how he got that gun on the roof? Did it fit in the backpack?
We're working to determine that. That's something that the FBI is working on.
3 weeks.
There's a couple of I don't want to speculate
You don't.
as to exactly how he would have gotten it up there.
I feel like I'm doing a sequel to Total Recall. 3 weeks.
Y'all are adding more and more candidates to your protection list. Can you ensure the protection of those candidates?
So we have already trained numerous details to be able to mobilize to pick up multiple candidates.
Oh, really?
You know, most of the presidential campaign activity usually picks up coming out of the conventions. So we are prepared for this. It's
I've got
just
my
that
own
now we are in such a high
sirens back now.
dynamic environment. We're actually making sure that we are probably putting everything we can to make sure that we don't have a mission failure. It is incumbent upon everyone in the Secret Service. We all understand the gravity of this situation.
Do
we
you?
are rising to meet this moment.
Then why are
And we
you
certainly,
investigating
as we go
yourself?
into the Democratic National Convention, as we await picking up another candidate with the eventual naming of a vice presidential nominee from the Democratic side, we are going to staff that, and we're going to make sure that we have all the resources and assets necessary to provide that level of protection. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, for crying out loud. All right. Well, apparently that's it. I'll keep it open here in case somebody comes back with some follow-up or something. Nope, that was it. Okay, well, what an absolute disaster area that was. Not answering questions, not talking about accountability, assuring that they've got it. The Secret Service is going to... Oh, and by the way, guys, did you know that the Pittsburgh office is really sad, guys. Now, they're really feeling the weight of this event. Oh, yeah, they really are. Okay. Independent prosecutor, independent investigator. This guy is too deep and too involved and too much a cheerleader for his own agency to have any kind of clear perspective on looking for the problems and addressing them. He should not be in charge of the investigation. He should not be the one overseeing the review. You need to have somebody in from the outside. You need to have some kind of retired FBI agent, somebody from a different agency in a criminal investigative capacity overseeing this, and not this guy. It's been 3 weeks. There are some simple questions and some simple accountabilities that could have been easily determined within 48 hours of the event. As if the Secret Service did not know, unless I guess they didn't, who is in charge on site, whose responsibility it was to see to the security of those roofs and those positions elevated, why the water tower was not manned, why that roof was not manned, on and on and on. How it is, apparently, the one piece of information that I find particularly interesting from this press conference that I didn't know before, apparently there was no drone coverage from any law enforcement agency that day. There was drone coverage from the shooter. But now going forward, oh, well, now that we've taken tips from the shooter's capabilities, now we'll start having drone coverage at these events just to make sure, just to check out those areas we couldn't cover with human beings or anything. Yeah, well, now we'll have drones. Thank you so much, Assassin, for your advice from beyond the grave. Thank you, Cryptic. I blame opinionated Scotsman. Well, you can placing blame anywhere other than where it belongs is part and parcel with what's going on right now. So you're right up there. Congratulations. Thank you, Cryptic. P-Dog Knight, who is in charge that hasn't been fired yet? He won't say. He won't name names. He won't even say that anything's been done. He dodged the whole thing 3 weeks after the fact. The good gravy. The director of the Secret Service, I mean, hell, if the director of the Secret Service was willing to stay on in her job for more than 12 hours after that incident, who knows what kind of thinking is going on in the remainder of the administration of the Secret Service that they haven't named, shamed, and fired the person involved. But here's the thing that tells me that there is no hope for this, is that he took great pains, as I said before, he took great pains to tell us just how depressed the local Secret Service office was about this event. This is the wrong guy to look into this. If he's going to play wet nurse to the problems in his own agency, and here's the thing, I don't doubt that the people in the local Secret Service office are torn up about this. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be in a position where you have to be the one holding the bag in the worst failure for your agency in a generation. But the problem is, it happened. It happened under your watch. There's obviously a problem, and everybody needs to be more pragmatic about this than this guy is sounding. This guy sounds like the Secret Service's friend. We don't need a friend. We need an investigator. He talked there at the end about how the Secret Service was an investigative body. I don't trust somebody who takes time out of their day to tell us just how much we should feel sorry for the agency that failed, when he's the one supposedly in charge of overseeing the investigation into those failures. This guy needs to step aside from this role. They need to bring in an independent investigator, some retired FBI guy, some retired prosecutor or judge or something from a different state, different jurisdiction to oversee this. This is ridiculous. We're nearly a month out from the event. We're just a few days out from a month from the event, and you can't say whose fault it was. No one's been fired. Teeth had to be pulled to get the former director to resign. It's ridiculous. This is unacceptable. Any other organization, a civilian organization, right, that had a failure this large would have identified the person responsible and fired them by now. If you think of something like, I don't know, a security failure at a bank, right? A security failure at a bank that led to somebody being killed, you would know who was responsible for that event, and they would have been fired immediately. There wouldn't be all this hither and dither and dicking around about it. The Secret Service has zero credibility right now. And his assurances that everybody in the Secret Service, he has faith and full confidence in them. Why? As far as we know, the same policies and procedures that led to this failure are still in place in every other state. Thank you again, John Miller. I keep hearing the old Mac error messaging. It's not my fault. Everyone should have been fired. Yeah, it's no one's fault. There was a communication breakdown that day. The message that there was a suspicious person, that there was a gun, that was somebody on a roof. There was a communication. That message did not get to Field Office 1 when it should have gotten to Field Office 2 or Representative X versus Y. But, it's really nobody's fault. That is not the person you want investigating the failures in this situation. But anyway, I'm going to call it here, guys. That was the end of the press conference. I think I've had my say. By all means, link to the broadcast is in the description below. If you missed it, you can rewatch it yourself or just rewind on this when it gets posted. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, both here and I again forgot to do so please forgive me. Over on my Discord server. I have a Discord server. Did you know that? I have a Discord server. Would you like to get a link to that Discord server? Would you like to join that Discord server? Well, let me tell you, There's a link to the Discord server in the chat right now. All you have to do is click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word tells me that you are not a bot, are actually a person, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is accountability. Just say hello, accountability, and I'll know that you watched the show. Ebony Williams. Oh, I just got here. Oh, I'm sorry, Ebony. Yeah, we just had the first real, I guess you can say, I don't know, substantive press conference from the Secret Service on the events of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And boy, oh boy, I'd say it was on par with the performance of former Director Cheadle in front of the congressional hearing, as far as just clarity, transparency, and responsibility. A lot more was said, but nothing was really concluded, if you know what I mean. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very little to do. In the middle of things, I completely forgot, and I apologize. The top of the chat box, guys, there's some links up there for the fundraisers for our friends Ron Harushan, Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Ariaga, and Ashley. Thank you, Kiverdam, for providing those. If you guys can take a look at those, donate if you are able, but if you are not, please be sure to share those out on social media. Appreciate it. Otherwise, everybody, thank you for donations to myself as well. You guys are very generous. I don't know what else to say, except I'm doing my best to pay that forward very shortly. Leave a like on the way out if you would. Leave a comment if you got something to say about this. Join the Discord server. Also, you'll find me here Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday stream, where I'll talk about a thing. I don't know what that thing is yet. I'll probably decide that Saturday night, and you'll all find out when I will, effectively. Everyone, hope you have a good rest of your Friday. Hope you have a good weekend ahead of you. Hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. That is decidedly not the outro music. I clicked on the wrong thing. Can you believe it? This is not an episode of Living on Borrowed Crime.